Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking out this video. And audio version as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did this week and maybe play around a little bit and all that. We talked a good bit about connecting pentatonics with heptatonics. If you're not familiar with that word, heptatonic, it's just a 7 note scale, so kind of like your major scales and things. Talked about that. And we will, in general, be talking a lot about pentatonics on the YouTube channel and on the podcast, and just generally, um, as we explore the guitar and everything. So if we think about the numbers of notes, right, and we think about, let's say, an octave shape. If we have a triad, we have like 3 notes, right? Okay. We could have all sorts of triads. We have diminished, 4 basic types: minor, augmented. So that number 3 is important. And then with pentatonics, there we have a major pentatonic, and we can kind of associate all of these with with all these different types of triads. So let's say you have a diminished triad. Then you might say, okay, so there's a minor pentatonic with a flat 5 there. Okay. So another type of pentatonic that will kind of fit that diminished triad sound is the first, I guess it would be the second inversion of a dominant pentatonic. So, okay, and that gives you other tones in there, which might suggest some other chords as well. So like a half diminished type of a chord for that, for actually both of those. Okay. Another pentatonic, if you're thinking about fully diminished, you might say, okay, this kind of pentatonic, or 5 note scale. So some of these are, you might think of as being kind of synthetic. Like this particular one, this is a particular sound on this type of chord. If you have a C diminished 7, oftentimes, just give that a little more bite. We have this tone up here, which is the flat 13. Right, so if we take a diminished triad, C diminished triad, and then we add this tone and that tone, we get something that works well for the diminished 7 chord. So we're kind of stacking things, stacking numbers here. And then, of course, you get minor triad. So we can build on top of that, add two notes. So fairly common to play the minor pentatonic. So that's a very well known pentatonic scale, and that's the relative minor of E flat major pentatonic. But what if you want? That's like kind of the nice thing about thinking about a triad too, is thinking a little bit about what the 7th is going to be, or even a 6 rather than a 7. So what if we had that and we had pentatonic? So we get so a sort of F dominant pentatonic, right? And then, coming up with other things too, maybe major 7 type sounds. So you might say, okay, C minor triad, let's put a major 7 on it, minor major 7. So you might put that 11 in there. And then the 9. Maybe instead of the 11. So many things to explore there with pentatonic scales. And then we have the major triad. So we have major pentatonic for 1. We could also think about sort of a C major 9 sort of sound. And this one, we could also think maybe flat 7. So that's the dominant pentatonic. There's so many things to explore there with the dominant. So many different ways of kind of coloring that. So flat 9, natural 5. Maybe playing like sharp 11 in there. And then the augmented triad might have augmented major 7, in which case you might play something like that with the 9 in there. Maybe play sharp 4 and sharp 5. And then, of course, dominance. You're just going to get a ton of mileage out of that augmented triad. A lot of practical things that you can do with that. So many things to build up to. And then, of course, doing all of those. I know it probably sounds like a lot, but doing all those pentatonics and then building 2 notes on top of that. So take a triad, add 2 notes, take the pentatonics, add 2 notes, and you get to 7. So that's where maybe I'll kind of simplify a little bit and maybe share some of the screens that we got to. I have a lot more plans on this subject. So we'll take a look at some of the things we did. Maybe we'll start with that since we are talking about it. So let's go into hitting the basics here, and talk about this a little bit. So if we take, let's say, the major pentatonic, and we add a couple of notes to it, we can collectively get the Ionian mode, or really any of the modes. So let's take a moment to check out this and think about the sound and everything. All right, so let's say we have the C major pentatonic here. So let's say we're looking at that area there. Okay. So if we add these tones here, the Fa and T using solfege. Okay, and we can associate that with the C major chord. And let's compare that to the Lydian. This is a really great way to work on your chord scales, work on modes of the major scale, and even we're going to get into some other types of scales too. You can see here we can play that, so almost the same scale. That's Lydian versus Ionian. Okay. All right, so we get those two sounds. All right, we're doing this video live, so I'm just gonna check in with the chat and check out any comments. And if you have any questions about this after the fact, place a comment down below. All right, so let's take a look at the Mixolydian type mode. So this has a different chord quality associated with it. We have a flat 7 now. And so we play that same C major pentatonic. Have that flat 7. So that is for the dominant 7. So a couple other things that we're going to get into as we work through these things is we'll play for one the Lydian dominant. Okay, and then we're also looking at minor modes and things. So that will all tie into to each one of these. So as we talked about this week, they're the sort of pairs of um, chord scales or modes as we think about these. So Mixolydian, Phrygian. So leaving off on that Mixolydian, there's another mode. I don't know if folks are familiar with this on the channel, but there's another mode or another type of pentatonic scale called the dominant pentatonic. Okay, and that's kind of the same thing. We could the nice thing about this is you get the pentatonic openness sort of sound, but you get a chord tone for the dominant chord. And then you can start altering it. So just trying to get, you want to get really familiar with all that. And then be able to change it around and adjust it. But that's a lot to take in. So we have, moving through the neck. Another related mode to that, which I was thinking about kind of pairing that as well, which kind of ends up going a little bit in the opposite direction. But so if we took the C dominant pentatonic and looked at paired it with the E minor 7 flat 5, we get another really useful mode for minor 7 flat 5. But we could kind of go on and talk about all of this. I don't know how familiar everybody is with all of these things, so I don't want to get too deep as today because we're just kind of reviewing. So let's check out some things that we did on practice ideas and concepts. So I think I'm going to really post my worksheet that I use for private students. I think I might just start posting this on the member area. And some of my thoughts on this just in general. I'll tell a couple of stories. I had a student, so I'm thinking about online learning. There are some really great strengths to it. I've seen folks do really great with some things. I've also seen the maybe the darker side of it too. So I'll tell just a couple of stories about private students. So I'll start with kind of the darker side of it. So I had a student come in who had been playing guitar for I think somewhere between 3 and 5 years, and he learned solely on the internet. And he came in, and his technique was really, really, really bad. And once he started learning those, and this applies to anyone, once you start learning those habits, they're really, really hard to undo. So that's why it's really important to get that feedback from someone who can watch and listen to you. And that's where the private lessons, come in and are very strong. Things like just listening for issues with time, listening for issues with dynamics, listening to issues with technique, and things like that. Because technique is very important. One doesn't really need to be like a great technician or something, but you have to really be able to get a clear sound and get your ideas across. So it is very important. So so that's one of the kind of pitfalls I think of online learning. Now, with um, so I'll tell another story, which is um, more a little more of a successful story. So I had a student who he came in and um, played pretty okay, and had been working, online, and I I would say to him, okay, you want to learn this song, and maybe I had a video on it. I don't remember if it was my video or someone else's, but I think it was mine. But I said, okay, work with this video, and then come back next week, and we'll see where you are with it. And just really floored me how great uh, the progress was over the course of the week. Because when you sit down with someone, just try to work with them on like a melody, like, okay, put your finger here, put your finger here, this over here. It's hard for them to go home and work from that. Although there are you know replays of videos and stuff, um, but that's kind of a strength, I think, of the internet. So when I think about what's going to be most effective for most people, I think it's like a combination of the two. Working on these, and that's what I think this member area is so great for, is supplementing, and then folks can come in and do the lessons from time to time, and um, and then they get the feedback, and also can get any personal attention with anything that kind of didn't make sense from watching the video. And also strength of the live stream too, because folks can ask questions. Okay, so um, let's take a look at the November worksheet. So this is kind of what I do for folks in the private studio. And I've been doing these types of worksheets for many, many, many years. So I just put them together, and they do kind of evolve a little bit. But you get four types of scales. You get the major scale, harmonic minor scale, melodic minor scale, and then harmonic major. And so one thing that you want to do with this, and one thing that we've been working on this week, is to go basically from one note to the other, an octave. So that would be C Lydian that we just played there. But try all the different modes. So it's a G. Now this is the relative perspective, which doesn't lend itself as well to hearing the differences between modes, although you can hear them. But when you take one root note and you do the parallel perspective and adjust things around, you can really hear the contrast. But But it's important, to be able to do this relative motion here, and you really get a sense for how chords move, from one to the next in a key, and get a sense for all that. So that's been one of the goals there, that I've been, as things evolve, trying to think about, um, how to relay the idea of a practice session and stuff like that. So one thing we've been doing, which I did a bunch of videos on this kind of thing early on, back probably in February, is kind of this idea of moving, playing octave shapes, okay, moving around the neck. Because you can fill this in with all sorts of different things. So if you have this going on, you have the foundation, right, of the building, or the foundation of the fingerboard. Um, if you're laying out just one note over the neck, so this up above combines those two. So this is like the pattern, and I talked about this in the live stream, I think on Tuesday, just like the open channel live stream. Is this as a core pattern? So we did some exercises with, you do that, kind of remind yourself. And so we're working on arpeggios there, four note arpeggios, doing it in another position, and then working on some of the scales as well. So the one thing that's sort of, I think, an issue in general on learning on guitar, or really, I think this is just kind of any instrument, is that in a moment in time, there's a certain sound, and so if you're in a key, and let's say the key's not really changing or anything, let's say if you're in a key and you play like C major 7, the chord is C major 7 or something like that, there are going to be certain consonant tones because they are part of the chord, and they'll have varying degrees of their own consonance or dissonance, but the other tones, the other 3 notes in the scale, are pretty dissonant, right? And those are sometimes called upper structure triads. But this is a very dynamic thing. So if you have G7, we're in the same key, now the notes of G are more consonant, right? So then that creates a little bit of tension, and then now C is real dissonant, and then the other 2 are somewhat dissonant. But so that's kind of an issue with all of this, is that we have chord scales to learn. So it's important to know scales. But it's important to know like in context. And one time I was playing in a band, and uh, we played like every day, and rotating members from time to time, and they would be with us for 3 months or 6 months or something, and then get kind of swapped out. And so we had an evening that was, we had a couple jazz oriented things. We had a couple uh, show type things, and so we had one saxophone player that came on, and she was fairly inexperienced, but had good reading ability. But she went to take a solo, and it wasn't bad or anything, but she afterwards she was talking about it, and saying, well, I played this scale on it, and that's where you have to kind of get into the chords, because if you just play a scale, and you don't specifically understand which note on the scale is relating to what on what chord, then still might not sound like you're connecting with the music. So that's where understanding the modes and understanding the chord scale relationship is incredibly um, important. Because if you have, let's say, sure why I'm getting a little distortion here, but I need to turn this down. Let's see what we've got here. Let's see if I can just readjust. I don't hear anything. Turn this up just a little bit. Try to get more of a. That's pretty good. Maybe too loud. So if you say, well, if the chord is G7, and you start playing like on C, that's technically the correct scale to play. I mean, correct. I say correct because it's just like that's where G7 is. It's in the key of C, but if you start on C, for example, and play a C major scale, that's probably the most dissonant tone on that chord, the C. Right, so you have to really know where those arpeggios are, those chord tones. And kind of the exciting thing about that is being able to change tones and alter things, and you have that core element there. So anyway, getting back to the practice along. So then we look at some pentatonics, and that's kind of the idea, is to on these is to get really good at connecting with the fingerboard, connecting with the sound, knowing where root notes are. and being able to relate to a chord sound. Then we got into some rhythms. So this is another just really important thing, which is to, if you're playing a scale, you know, is to be able to play it, you know, be able to play a particular rhythm and move through it. Okay, and then we looked at some chords you want to know. Some are kind of more high priority than others, I might say. Like that one, you might not end up playing a lot, but same chord on these middle 4 strings is pretty common. And this one too. So this is, goal here is to give something specific to practice, something to maybe play along with me a little bit, or pause. Folks can kind of pause the video and start in again after they repeated an exercise or something. So that's kind of the whole idea with all that. All right, now another thing I've been checking out here is kind of the idea of studying you know, someone's playing, you know, like a particular musician. So that's a lot of what I'm kind of gearing the overview and analysis. So we looked at a couple things this week. We looked at the Yardbird Suite solo, Tal Farlow. So let me see if I can kind of get this, play around a little bit on it, and maybe play a little phrases. So we're trying to get into kind of what someone does, you know, what a musician does on a particular tune or a particular change. And I'm even thinking now, I might do a little bit of maybe taking just a phrase or something and maybe just really like diving into it, something. So see how that goes tomorrow there. Or this next week. All right, but let's check this out a little bit. So we looked a little bit. My students is calling me. Got a student coming at 5:30. They didn't come early. So I apologize about that, but make sure they're not leaving anybody hanging here. Let's take a look at this. This was kind of the first line. We'll just take a look at this. So get a G7. I'm going to try to work with the tablature here a little bit. Okay, so that's on G7. So, try to work on playing the sound of the chord and just thinking about, what each note sounds like as it relates to the chord, and if possible, see if you can number it. So so the B flat on a G7, that's going to be the sharp 9. For that. So that's a particular thing that's significant. All right, so we've got think about the chord sound. And then, so here's a little bit of a practice idea. So you could say, okay, I want to take that sound. Now, in C means no chord, but it does go from G7, 2, 3, 4 to the C6, 9. So play the chord again. Right. And then, kind of take a look at, ideally try to move away from tablature, but okay. This is a good way to take, this is something I was thinking about earlier today, is to take something and think about, okay, is that a particular chord that they're playing, or is that a particular or arpeggio? Because we do hear this. We just got a G minor 7 on that G7 chord, so I can say, oh, maybe like use that in my own playing. Say, oh, maybe do a more conceptual sort of thing. Think. And then the C. Okay. Now it says no chord, but you could also say, okay, does this suggest something? Okay, get this little chromatic tone here, moving forward. Okay, so this is likely setting up the F major 7. So he plays this in F major. So we get so then is he playing 2 beats early and giving us some of that F major sound, right? So this could be, so it's written as no chord, so it's kind of fun to take a look and say, okay, um, is that so those are some things that are kind of fun to try and think about, where that line came from. Now, when someone's improvising, um, it's hard to speak for them necessarily, but they've got a lot of language that they've developed over time, maybe from working with um, transcriptions of their own, maybe from just playing and sort of developing certain phrases and things. But you're going to be able to find some sort of uh, logic, in what they're doing. So, everybody, well, that's gonna pretty much conclude our talk. That's most everything that we talked about, I think. So, um, so I hope everybody had a good week of practice. So, Thanksgiving Day, I didn't get any videos out, but I'm kind of assuming most folks are a little bit busy, at least ones in the U.S. So, kind of doing family things. So, I hope everybody's having a great week and a great time with the member area. And let me know if you have any questions or need any help on anything. And I'll see you all in the next one.